beautiful people, and welcome to my channel. I wanted to talk about something that many of us have gone through and something that maybe you hear a lot, maybe you don't hear it enough, and that is the transition period from college to adult life in the real world. I have my dog here, Maddie, to help me out today. But yeah, so let's dive right in. For me, the college experience was very fun, and I think a lot of it was figuring out who I was as a person, my personality, and I think kind of realizing that I had passions and dreams that I didn't necessarily pursue and put so much of my effort into because I was following, what I felt was the right path. When I went to college, I actually entered as a journalism major, and I wanted to do print journalism. And I know maybe that sounds a little crazy, but I wanted to do things where like I was going into, war zones and crazy situations and reporting and being right there with the people who are experiencing it and being able to tell their stories. And what I found was that print journalism is really getting phased out. Of course I knew that, but I don't think I knew how important and how much it was being phased out, I guess. And so when I went to college, I ended up changing my major to communications because I felt like that would give me some, diversity, and I would have a good background when I went into the workforce, and it still kind of allowed me to pursue my passion in writing and storytelling. But I honestly had no idea what I was really going to do with this degree. So probably in my senior year of college, I started to get involved in the theater department, and I really started to branch out and meet people and kind of get into what I was doing when I was younger, which was performing, singing, being on stage, giving a show. And that was really just always what I loved to do, what I felt most alive, what my passion was. And so I ended up loving it. I was constantly at the theater department in our school, and I was always hanging out with other theater kids, and I felt so at home with them. And I think that led me to realize this is what I always have been passionate about, and I need to be able to do this in some capacity of my life. Now, fast forward to graduation, I ended up moving back home to Denver, Colorado, and I lived between my parents. And I just kind of ended up doing dead-end jobs, really, things that weren't necessarily related to my degree. I did an internship for a little bit after college, so like for a few months after I graduated, I did do an internship, and I made a video, like a safety brief video, so that was kind of along the lines of what I wanted to do, but definitely not really being able to, act and sing and do music and just explore all the things that I truly loved and that made me feel like I was happy. So I definitely experienced depression after school. That transition just felt really rough, and I spent kind of a year after graduation just trying to figure out, what I was doing, honestly, and who am I and what am I gonna do now? For so long I had people telling me, okay, this is the next step. You do this, you go to college after you go to high school, and you do this after this. And so for once, I didn't have any idea of what was to come next. So I was kind of just like, well, what what do I do? So I definitely dealt with depression during this transition, and I don't think that it's something that we dive into that much, that we talk about, because we kind of tell people go to college, get a degree, then get a job, and I think a lot of the times we're just going through the motions. And in my case, and I know a lot of my friends' cases who also kind of like to do the things that I like to do, acting, and who are in the arts, they don't necessarily know what the next step is after school. And I know I certainly didn't, and that's how I ended up doing a bunch of jobs that I didn't love, and also kind of just feeling lost. And that feeling of lost really kind of contributes to being stuck, like feeling stuck. I felt so helpless, honestly. And there were definitely days when I didn't want to get out of bed, when I didn't really know how to cope with this transition, and it just felt really tough for me. So I kind of spent a year just kind of dealing with those things and trying to figure out, where do I go from here? About a year or so after I graduated, I actually ended up doing some mission work for about 3-4 months. And that was incredible. Like, it changed my kind of perspective, changed my life, and kind of brought this new sense of purpose, just because I was able to help other people. And for anybody who kind of just doesn't know what to do, but they have free time and they kind of have the ability to go and do something with their time, I totally recommend mission work or volunteer work, something where you can go and help other people, because it's so amazing just to be able to take the focus off of yourself and off of your own problems and what's going on with you, and you can get out there and, you know, help other people. And when you're not focusing so much on yourself, you will find that it can do a lot of good for the spirit and for the soul. And so for me, it was really refreshing. It was great. I was doing a lot of traveling, sleeping on the floor, and it was awesome. I had such a great time, and I connected with people, the other people that I was working alongside, and it was really amazing. So I definitely recommend that to anyone who has some free time to spare and is kind of like looking for something to boost their spirits, or even just take the focus off of their own life for a while. Definitely consider doing some volunteer work. But after that, I ended up just kind of on a whim moving to California because my sister lived out there. I wanted to always live in California, so I ended up finding some housing and finding somewhere to work, and I was able to make that leap and move out to California. That was about a year, almost a year and a half ago, and I kind of ended up in California just working again and kind of doing the regular things. And yeah, it's been a really interesting experience. I'm definitely still figuring out who I am, and in your early 20s and your 20s, your whole life, honestly, you change so much. Like, you could be a totally different person today, and then something happens to you tomorrow that gives you a totally new perspective and outlook on life. And so I have kind of been learning how to appreciate the growth and the struggle and the challenges that those present. And I remember when I was in college, I had a professor who I really, loved. And I remember I was considering transferring schools just because I didn't feel so at home my freshman year. And I think that freshman year, that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, I did end up staying. And I think the thing that made me stay was he said something to me, and that's, when you are comfortable, you don't grow. Because there's nothing forcing you to sprout or to bloom or, making you get out of your comfort zone. So for me, I was able to take those words, and they definitely were really impactful in my decision for staying at my school. And staying there, it was the best 4 years of my life, honestly. I know people hear that a lot. College is amazing, and that's the time when you have so much fun, but it's really true. Honestly, I had so much fun, and there are so many crazy things that I did in college that would not be acceptable now as an adult, and as a person who has to be responsible and kind of live with the decisions that I make on a daily basis and stuff. Not saying that you can go buck wild in college and that you should be out there just going crazy, but definitely take it as a time to enjoy yourself and learn. And even this whole transition period in these years after college, because I don't think that it gets any easier, honestly. I think if anything, you just get stronger and you kind of learn how to deal with things that come at you. And for me, the biggest part is just appreciating, the things that are happening in life, and just understanding that you're where you are right now for a reason. Even if it doesn't feel totally great, or it kind of feels like a hard place to be in, this is where you are meant to be. And you wouldn't be here if it wasn't, where you needed to be at the moment. So try to learn from maybe the experiences that you're dealing with right now. You're not in a job that you like. Okay, look for another job, but also at the same time, understand that maybe this job is teaching you a lesson at the moment. I've definitely had jobs that I could tell you some horror stories, and there were so many times that I would look at myself like, why am I still here? But I needed to be there at the moment, and when it was my time to go, my time came, and I was definitely gone. But I think that applies in every situation, because a lot of times while we're working towards our dreams, we feel stuck in our situations, but we should appreciate those situations and try to find what that situation is preparing us for and trying to teach us, because honestly, we will need it at some point later on in our lives, or we wouldn't be dealing with that and, going through that or experiencing it. And so, yeah, I kind of compare these years after college to this saying. Anybody who knows me very well knows that I used to love this show called Monk. I actually still do love the show, and I watch it whenever I can find it. But there's something that Monk says about his particular abilities as a detective, and if you've seen the show, he's very attentive, and he notices things that a lot of other people kind of just pass by. And he says that it's a gift and a curse, and that's how I kind of see these years. They're a gift and a curse because there's so many things that you can do, and you can make mistakes, and you can be in relationships, and you can eat and gain weight and lose it, and not saying that you should do make decisions that aren't good for you and good for your body or your health, and especially your mental health, but there are so many experiences that you're able to kind of just experiment with at this moment. And that's why it's a gift. There's so many things that you're learning, and you're finding out who you are as a person still, and as an adult, and and especially for me, like following my passions. I just started playing the guitar a few months ago, and it's hard as heck. It really is, but I've always wanted to do it since I was a little kid. And so to me, this is the time where you should be doing those things, reading those books, traveling, and following your passions, because you don't want to look back 20 years from now like, why didn't I start sooner? But on the other hand, it also can be a curse, because it feels like you don't know what you're doing, and it feels a lot of times like just WTF. Like, there are so many times that I have said that, and just so many situations, and honestly, there are so many times where it can feel so hard, and where you can deal with depression. And I think a lot of people who kind of find themselves stuck or feeling like they don't really know what they're doing kind of do end up dealing with some depression or something. And especially in my case, it's definitely an everyday battle, but I think that once you kind of start to incorporate your passions and the things that you love to do in your life, you can find so much more happiness and so much more joy, because that stuff comes from within, and it's not going to come from things outside and buying things and people, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, relationships, money, clothes. Like, at the end of the day, you have to find that happiness inside. And I think that in this transition period especially, it can be very helpful to just love yourself, love that you're making mistakes, because you don't want to make them 15 years from now when you're 40 or something, or 30, and you want to be able to, experiment during this time. And so I think that even though the 20s and the transition from college, high school, whatever, transition from teenage years to real adulthood, where you kind of are like, well, now I actually have to get out there and pay bills and get a job and do stuff that I didn't do before. You know, I have to find a place to live by myself and things like that. It's, you know, it is something that we have the opportunity to explore and just kind of make our way. And there's no right way to do this. And nobody honestly has a formula. Nobody can say that you're doing it wrong, but you just need to do what is best for yourself. And I think that, you know, in time, everything, you will see things come together. And I just want to say, for anybody who's kind of struggling in this period, transition period, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it is definitely hard, but there are days that are so amazing, so amazing. And those days are so worth the ones that are a little bit challenging and hard to deal with and get through. But yeah, so that is what I have to say about that transition period. I definitely want to talk about it more on my channel, but thank you so much for tuning in today, and have a beautiful rest of your day, whatever, rest of your night. If you're watching me at 2 a.m., going to sleep, whatever. Thank you so much. Bye.